Abigail.
Mercy, call me, please. Okay, 3 minutes to go. Hello, peoples. Thank you and welcome to this session. I am Abigail Yete. I'm a French lead of Women in Agile Africa. I'm an Agilist, and I'm the founder of Vino. Vino is a center that helps working moms breastfeed their kids until 6 months. But here today is not about me. We are about to talk. I'll give the floor in a minute to someone special, really special, to an Agilist. She has a lot of experience and she will talk to you. There's a great, we are going to have a great time with Moonwei. Her name is Moonwei Chung. So the talk, her theme is, are you running an adult daycare center or are you a 21st century leader? That's a question. Where do you position yourself? So Moonwei is having this session. We are going to have this great session with her, great time with her. I'll just give her the floor and let her present herself and start with the talk. Moonwei, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much for such a wonderful introduction. And thank you everyone for being here. Now, I just want to caution you that this talk is going to be quite interactive, but I need your help. So I will be asking you to type things in the chat from time to time. Is that okay? Well, actually, let's try it now. Type in the chat okay if you agree to type in the chat when I asked you to. Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. So let's start. Do you have bosses who think they know best and tell you what to do? Type in the chat boss if you have that kind of bosses. Also, type in the chat boss if you have experienced the top being in charge and power trickles down. Yes, indeed. Oh, boss boos. Okay. All right. Well, a few of us have some of that type of bosses. But people nowadays says leadership occurs at every level. What does that actually mean? Now, thanks to the pandemic, globally, we introduced something called remote working or hybrid model. How are we supposed to lead in this remote and hybrid world? I'm so glad that you've decided to join me today in this session. These are the questions that we'll explore today. Welcome. My name is Moonwei. You can also call me MW. I have close to 25 years of corporate and agile experience. I first became a manager more than 20 years ago in a 2,000 people company. In the next 20 plus years, I have led people with and without an actual management title in companies ranging from startups with less than 100 people to global enterprises with more than 20,000 employees. Towards the end of my corporate career, I was promoted to chief of staff. So I have worked at every level of a company except being a CEO. The fact that I have employees who have followed me to whichever company I worked in must be an indication that I've done something right. So I will be sharing through my personal stories the principles and key takeaways of what I have learned Agile leadership is and is not. So let's get into it. When I asked people what they think leadership is, a lot of them said, be the best person to do the job and my people is supposed to follow and emulate me. Or I get to tell people what to do and correct them when they're doing it wrong. Or educate them so they can be just like me. Then they can be promoted like me. And the most common that I heard during the pandemic is holding my team accountable, driving them to produce, monitoring them to make sure they don't slack off. What about you? What do you think leadership is? Well, let me tell you my story. I first graduated from engineering graduate school. After I first graduated from engineering graduate school, I was hired to be the systems engineer to modernize a satellite communication system that was 25 years old. It was a government project. My boss was a program manager. Now, for US government projects, the program manager is the boss because they got the money from the customer, the US government. So they hold the budget, the timeline, the relationship with the customer. Now, he put a team of people together with various skills, and we worked together to complete this monstrous task. I was responsible for the entire engineering architecture and technical direction, hardware, firmware, software, and I also went with him to meet with our customers to give them periodic updates. I was brand new to the working world, and the people whom I work with have been working in the same industry for more than 20 years. Now, in my newbie's eyes, my job and my boss's job didn't have too much difference. Yes, he had the money and he held the budget, but that's about it. He and I met with the customers together. I gave him our estimates and timelines and the risks and the mitigation plan. So when I asked my boss about it, he told me that if I truly wanted to know the difference, he would invite me to attend every single meeting he attended. Oh boy, were my eyes opened. Not only did I realize what other things and tasks that he did, but the most important lesson was how he treated his team. He cared about his team. Now, looking back, it's easy to see that my boss has built a psychologically safe environment, though that was before Dr. Amy Edmondson started to popularize the term psychological safety. It is an environment where people feel free to express themselves without the fear of humiliation or retribution. Otherwise, I would have received reprimands when I asked him what the difference were between our jobs, because I didn't see too much difference. Well, actually, I'm curious. Do you think that could have been perceived as me challenging my boss? Type challenge in the chat if you think that could have been perceived as me challenging my boss when I asked him what the difference were between our jobs, even though I was truly curious. All right, at least one of you thought that that is a challenge. That's good. Well, the good thing is my boss didn't treat it as such. I felt camaraderie with my much older and more senior colleagues. I felt included in the team, even though I was fresh out from grad school. We supported each other. We never stopped asking questions or offering ideas. We even admitted mistakes and weaknesses. And when we disagreed with each other, we debated constructively and we figured out a way to make decisions amidst our decisions. Oh, when I said we, I meant everyone on the team, including my boss. Also, the team could tell him their frustrations around the things that blocked their progress, and he would work hard to remove those blockers. The projects finished on time and under budget. First in the US government's recent history. They even gave us a plaque in the shape of California to congratulate us. Now, the thing is, I never wanted to work with the US military or the US government. That company had a commercial branch. So after the project was completed, I told my boss I wanted to work in the commercial sector. And he found me a systems engineer position on the commercial side. I was excited to finally start my commercial career. Soon after my transfer, I found that my new boss monitored and questioned my every move. Since I was a newbie, I only had 2 years of work experience under my belt at that time. I was told I should keep my ideas and opinions to myself and leave them to the more senior people. When I wanted more information, for example, why we're doing what we're doing, or the context of the project, or other information about the project, not only was I not given those pieces of information, I was told it is not my job, that I should mind my own business. Basically, I was reprimanded for opening my mouth. My new boss didn't only treat me that way, he treated others the same. That's a vastly different environment from where I came from, where the colleagues work together as a team. We shared information freely with each other. We told each other opinions. And even when we disagreed with each other, we found a way to move forward towards the objective. So I talked to my old boss about the situation. He was able to transfer me out of that manager and got me to report to her boss directly instead. Well, her boss wasn't that much better. While he didn't monitor my every move, he did ensure that I minded my own business. When he gave me feedback, he would sometimes include my gender and ethnicity in his comments. Something like, as an Asian, you should know, or as a woman, you should have, while he's a white man. He also accused me of wrongdoings that he himself regularly did. Do you think that was a happy working environment? Type in the chat happy if you think that's a happy working environment. If not, type unhappy. Let's see. Does anyone think that's a happy working environment? Unhappy. Yeah, that is definitely not a happy working environment. Well, everyone on that team was an edge. There was no camaraderie. Oh, I'm so glad you all agree with me. That's not a happy working environment, because I definitely didn't feel included as part of the team. We spent as much effort in protecting ourselves every day as doing the actual work. At that time, I wondered if that's the difference between commercial projects, where everything is cutthroat and everyone is looking out for themselves, and government projects where once a deal is signed, you've been chosen among all the competitors and the competition is over. And I wondered if it's possible to create similar environments in the commercial world. Well, after 4 years as a systems engineer, I decided I like dealing with people more than dealing with technical problems. For me, technical problems always have a solution sooner or later, and the solution will always work under the same conditions. But there's no such thing when dealing with people. The solutions for people problems are never the same, even when it's the same people. The me from yesterday is different from the me today, and it'll be different from the me tomorrow. We change, we all do. To me, that's more fun. So remembering my first boss, I became a program manager. I knew enough by then from working in the commercial world that program managers are not the boss of everyone. No one reports to a program manager, unlike my first boss, where the entire team reported to him. But that's not what I was after. I wanted to see if I could find such enjoyable working environments like what I experienced under my first boss. And evidently what we produced at that time delighted the customer greatly as well. We had that California-shaped plaque to prove it. When I couldn't find such enjoyable environments, I wondered if I could help foster such environments. I know I wasn't the boss, but I thought I could at least foster that for the people whom I worked with. I want people to be excited and motivated to go to work instead of dreading to go to work. Well, type in the chat excited if you like to be excited about your work. Let's see how many of you actually would want to be excited to go to work instead of dreading to go to work. Anyone? Okay. Thank you. Exactly. I hope that you all want to be excited to go to work, because, when people are eager and excited to go to work every day, that means they are doing things that are challenging and rewarding, and they like the people that they work with. In other words, they allowed it to grow and operate to the full potential, and they value and embrace the teammates' differences. So over the next 20 plus years in the corporate world, I went after anything or any group that hindered the team working effectively together to produce a product that delights the customers. Starting from engineering, I realized that there were outside forces hindering them from working effectively together. So I chased after all those outside forces to see if I could eliminate them or at least revise them so that the team could work better together. Over time, I ended up working in all the disciplines within product development: product management, user experience, technical writing, engineering, operations, in companies that have offices around the world. Now, even with the entire global product development team, there were still outside forces that hindered them. And that's when I started messing around with the executive management team, HR, finance, and even facilities. I'll talk more about what those outside forces are later. So, what have I learned? I have found that whenever there's an enjoyable working environment, whether it's completely in person or a distributed environment, that's the pre-COVID term for hybrid, or even a completely remote environment, it is because leadership and management uses a people-first approach. Type in the chat, people first. And that's because when you release the potential of the staff, they will release the potential of the business. Let me say it again. When you release the potential of your staff, they will release the potential of the business. Using a people-first approach to design work, the where, when, and how, employees will be more engaged. Engaged employees are more innovative, they focus more on business value than output, and they stay at the organization longer. They're even healthier. Engaged employees are what allows the company to be flexible, nimble, and agile enough to respond, react, and adapt to this increasingly complex and fast-changing 21st century that we're in today. Now, before I continue, I am curious, how many of you have gone through some kind of agile transformation? Type in the chat agile if you have gone through some type of agile transformation. Nobody? Anyone who has gone through some type of agile transformation? Type agile if that's the case. Interesting. Well, if you haven't, that's all right. Somebody has. Somebody's currently in housing management transformation, agile approach. Good. All right. But you may find that very few of us have seen the far-reaching effect that it promised. And why is that? While Agile is spreading out of engineering IT, obviously, to other parts of the company, the HR, sales, and marketing, and even outside of software industry, Agile is actually not a goal. Agile is an inspirational journey of how to get from where you are to the vision and reality of where you aspire to be. Agile cannot be done in silos. The company is only as agile as the least agile department. It takes collaboration and adopting continuous change and improvement with a learning mindset along each step of the journey. And we need to focus on human factors and behaviors. Type in the chat, behavior. Because governance, the policies, the KPIs, all drive behavior. And that's what I meant earlier by outside forces that hinder the team. For example, what behavior are you driving when you give people promotions and salary increases based on their individual achievements, while you actually want people to work together as a team? Why not incentivize them in the behavior that you'd like to see? For example, going out of their way to help their teammates. That's a reward and recognition system. Oh, here's another one. How about when you need to provide all the answers at the end of each year for the entire following year, the budget, the roadmap, the resource plan, and you're required to jump through hoops whenever there are changes during the year, when we know that the world changes rapidly in this 21st century? By the way, isn't that why Agile exists? Because we know things change? So instead of locking everything down and demanding a tight change control process, we develop a process that allows and incorporates changes. Remember 2020? Did anyone execute the 2020 plan that was planned out in Q4 of 2019? Yet, that's the annual corporate planning and budgeting process that most companies are doing now for 2024. Also, we all know that people need feedback to learn and grow. So when people do something right, or when we see a right behavior, we want to make the consequence of that behavior positive, immediate, and certain, and then we'll see more of that behavior. Likewise, When people do something wrong, or when we see an undesired behavior, we let them know as quickly as we can. That way, they would know not to do that again and what to do instead. So what are we doing to provide quick feedback to our teams instead of waiting for the annual or biannual performance review when we can barely remember what we did a couple of months ago? That's the current performance management system. Now, recently, one of my clients, a CEO and a founder, said he prefers hybrid working environments because he firmly believes that in order for the team to be productive and to have team spirit, the team has to work together face-to-face in person. However, he realized that requiring everyone to go to the office would upset his workforce. They're all knowledge workers. So he chose a hybrid mode. Like my client, a lot of people in management positions today still act like they know best and tell the workers what to do. For example, thou shalt go back to the office, or we'll do hybrid, but you have to come in on these days, etc. They only make concessions to their employees because they're afraid they will lose their talents, like the great resignation or the quiet quitting that happened last year. Why not let the team decide? They are the ones doing the work anyways, and they know best how to work with each other to be most productive, which includes where and when they work. That's a remote work policy. Now, there are many more governance policies and KPIs in the company, but I think you get the idea. However, if we have a people-first mindset, then it's not about how we want to run the company or how we want to manage our employees. It's not about our preferences or beliefs at all. It is about what would be best for our employees. And that is also what leadership means. Leadership is no longer about telling the employees what to do and monitoring their progress like a hawk. It is about creating and maintaining an environment where employees feel safe and motivated to contribute to their fullest. It's about answering the question, what can be done that would be best for my employees while achieving the goal? Oh, by the way, teams can be even more productive and have even more team spirit when they work remotely. Working remotely requires a whole new mindset and a brand new skill set because people have to change the way they communicate and collaborate completely. It takes unlearning and relearning. Sometimes it requires upskilling, and most of all, it takes intentionality. Type intentional in the chat. Indeed. When we change the way we manage work first, then the culture and work will change. And when I say culture, I mean beliefs, attitudes, behaviors. And when I say work, I mean procedures, rituals, roles, models, structure. Trying to change the culture and work directly is futile until you change the ways of managing first. We need to change the way we manage work in order to change the system of work, which will transform the way we work, which then entrenches itself in our culture. Attempts to make work agile or to change culture on their own will fail. So, what am I saying? Focus on human factors and behaviors and create a people-first culture. My first boss cares about his team. He empathized with us, and he created a physically and psychologically safe environment for his workers. By the way, one of the components of psychological safety, according to Dr. Amy Edmondson, is inclusion and diversity. And we need an inclusive environment in order to foster collaboration. Agile frameworks, practices, and ceremonies don't automatically guarantee that. In fact, according to the Business Agility Institute's DE&I report, DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is generally not considered a core aspect of agile ways of working. It takes intentionality, plus awareness and continuous learning and growing to make that happen. Let's go back to my first boss. Not only did he care about us and create a safe environment for us, he also trusted us, his employees. All of those combined motivated his employees to work harder to earn his trust. He also gave us the authority to act within certain parameters, which he made known and explained to us. He was also there to remove impediments and roadblocks that hindered our progress and our success. He was there to help us, not to lord over us. Now, contrasting with my second and third bosses, those were not safe environment. And as some of you already wrote in the chat earlier, that was not a happy environment. That was quite unhappy. People were reprimanded for speaking up, so we didn't speak up anymore about anything. We spent more time building walls to protect ourselves than building the product. There was no trust. We were told what to do, what not to do, and that we need to stay in our lanes. We didn't collaborate with each other. And when my boss accused me of wrongdoings that he routinely did himself, I knew he didn't care about me or empathize with me. I was only there to serve him and to get him to where he wanted to go in his career. I definitely felt I was being lorded over and excluded. You may realize that 21st century leadership is about people skills. Type people skills in the chat. Now, the term people skills may be a little bit new to you, but type them in the chat anyways. People, you also call those soft skills, so there's nothing soft about them. So yes, the 21st century leadership is about people skills, because there's no correlation between how good you are at the job and how good a leader you are. Because one is about doing the job and the other is about creating a space in which others are good at the job. The best leaders have high EQ, emotional intelligence. The best leaders understand people skills. They're good at listening. They're good at empathy. They're good at patience. They're good at creating a space in which they can help other people feel accountable. They believe in people. They practice trust, which means they trust first. All of these things require risk and patience. You find that the practices of good leadership very often are the practices of being a good human being. And my first boss definitely had good people skills. By the way, some management rules by fear because they think it's good for employees to have some fear, as fear will propel people to work harder and better. What they don't understand is that management by fear only gives the illusion that goals are being met. In reality, it stifles innovation, creativity, and collaboration needed to respond to this complex and rapidly changing world that we call the 21st century. So, lead the people, don't manage them, meaning put people first, inspire and serve them, and manage the system, the governance, the policies, the KPIs that allow people the freedom to act. Remember, bosses fix people while leaders fix environments. Now, do you know Peter Drucker, the father of modern management, actually said in the 1950s that a manager's job is to make common men do uncommon things, that a manager has a task of creating a true whole that is larger than the sum of his parts, that the manager is the dynamic, life-giving element in every business. I'm wondering, is that what you have experienced or are experiencing? Type in the chat yes, if that's what you have experienced, that that's your manager. And if not, type no. I'm wondering, how many of us have bosses like what Peter Drucker said? No. Okay. Any others? Yes or no? Ooh, okay. There are a few no's. And for those yeses, I am very happy for you that you have such good managers. But it seems like there are more no's than yes. And it is also quite different from what people told me what leadership is as well. So what has changed between the 1950s and now? In the 1970s, an economist, Milton Friedman, theorized that the responsibility of business is to maximize profit within the bounds of the law, which give rise to shareholder supremacy. Shareholder supremacy means we will prioritize the wants, the needs, and desires of a shareholder over the needs of the customer or an employee. Milton's theory was popularized in the 1980s and 90s when businesses mostly rejected Peter Drucker's idea in the 1950s that the only purpose of a firm is to create a customer, and instead doubled down on the self-interest idea that the only purpose of a firm is to make money for the firm's shareholders. So we have been seeing the effects, the byproducts, the unintended byproducts of some of these management theories. We had the decline of trust. We had the decline of cooperation. We've even seen the decline of a lifespan of a business. In the 1950s, the average lifespan of a business was over 60 years. Today is 18. Our interest became shorter and shorter term, and we have done damage to the kinds of quality of thinking and innovation that come from organizations, which is always from people. The layoffs that started at the end of 2022 and continues through the first half of 2023 around the world is a good example of that. You can also look at my second and third bosses who sucked the lives out of their workers, while my first boss cared about his team, and he was indeed the dynamic, life-giving element in the business, as Peter Drucker said. By the way, remember I wondered if there's a difference between commercial projects and government projects where everything is cutthroat and everyone is looking out for themselves in the commercial sector, while the competition is over when the project starts in the government sector? I found out that not all the teams in the government projects have such enjoyable working experiences. So it's not about the kind of project or the people in the project, but it's about the leader and the environment that the leader creates. Do you agree? Type leader in the chat if you agree that it is the leader and the environment that the leader creates, not the people in the projects, not the type of projects. I'm so glad you agree. Now, while we may not have bosses like my first boss, we all have to choose to be leaders we wish we had. I chose to be more like my first boss instead of my second and third bosses. I wish they were more like my first boss, but I couldn't change them. So we have to remember, we don't have to worry about affecting things we cannot affect. We have to worry about the people whose faces we recognize and whose names we know. We commit ourselves to seeing that those people love coming to work every day, that those people feel that someone has their back. That's where we have to start, looking after the people around us. It doesn't matter whether it is remote, hybrid, or completely in person. We have to do the hard work of creating a psychologically safe environment for our peers and sometimes even those above us. Empathy can go up the chain of command. It doesn't just always go down. And it's especially important now with all the layoffs that has happened. Leaders need to do the hard work to create a safe, trusting, open, and transparent environment for the remaining teams. You've probably heard enough by now to realize that Simon Sinek is right, that leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in our charge. That is, the people around us, whom we work with every day. That's how leadership occurs from all levels. Leadership is also a choice. You don't have to be a leader if you don't want to. But leadership is definitely not a rank. Simply getting a promotion doesn't make you a leader. That just means you have authority, and you're given more authority. The choice to become a leader means I now undertake the care of the human beings that are in my charge. I want to see them grow. I want to see them learn. I want to see their self-confidence build, and I want them to achieve more than they think they're capable of. The difference between leadership and authority is that leadership tells us why we're here in the first place. They remind us why we came here. Authority tells us what to do and tells us what goal to achieve. Remember, leaders are not responsible for the results. Leaders are responsible for the people who are responsible for the results. So put people first and create an environment where people can work at their natural best. The good thing is, leadership is a skill. It's a learnable, teachable, practicable skill. So learn how to make the lives of the people around you better, like how to listen well, how to ask questions, or how to give and receive feedback, how to have effective confrontations, how to discipline when necessary in a way that's constructive. Get to know people, care for them. When you ask someone, how are you doing? You actually care about the answer. If you don't care, don't ask. Just like any skill, learning is not enough. It takes practice. If you practice a lot the little things that make the lives of the people around you better, you get good at it. I started this talk asking you what you think leadership is. I'll end with what Bridget Hyacinth said. I don't care whether you come into the office at 10 a.m. I don't care if you choose to work from home or not. I don't care if you work from the garage while they fix your car. We hired you to do a job, and I trust you to get it done. Just let me know what you need from me to be successful in your role, and I'll show up for you. Life happens. You don't need to justify to me why you need a day off. You don't need to explain how sick your child is to leave early. You don't need to apologize for having a personal life. Yes, I care about results, but I also care about you. We're all humans, and we're all adults. I lead people. I don't run an adult daycare center. So, are you running an adult daycare center? Or are you a 21st century leader? Now, I know you all want to be a 21st century leader, otherwise you won't be attending this talk right now. And after attending this talk, you know that being such a leader is a journey and a spectrum. So, do you want to know where you are in the journey of being a 21st century leader? Now, if you do, I'm inviting you to a special Women in Agile Africa session with me, Leading Beyond Daycare, your personalized assessment, where you will get on a 25-minute call with me one-on-one. Now, at the end of the 25 minutes, you get an assessment as to where you are in being a 21st century leader. Remember I said earlier that being a 21st century leader includes two elements. First, your people are enabled to work at their natural best and can contribute to the fullest. And second, your systems allow people the freedom to act. So you get an assessment of where you are for both of those parts. Now, on top of the assessment, you also get a personalized roadmap for your next course of action, so you know exactly where you need to tackle next to establish and maintain an environment where employees can feel safe and motivated to contribute to their fullest. Now, I normally charge US $495 for such sessions, but since you joined my talk today, I'm offering this for free, but only for the next 7 days. So click the URL and book the session now. Let me actually put the URL in the chat. Thank you so much for listening so attentively and participating when I asked you to type in the chat. I'd love to connect with all of you. My contact information is on the slide, and I'm putting them in the chat as well. I am also giving you the link to get the slides from today's talk in case you're interested. Thank you. Now, before we go to Q&A, may I ask you actually one additional question? Did you notice I asked you to type in the chat for two different types of things? The first type is I asked you open questions and you need to think to answer. And the second is words that I told you to type. What do you think? Which one do you like better? First or second? Type in the chat first or second and let me know which one you like better. Now, again, type first if you like the open questions that I asked you that you need to think and answer. And second, if you like to type the words I told you. There's both first and second. All right, first. So you actually like open-ended questions you need to think and answer. Ooh, some of you actually like to type the words I told you to. Interesting. Well, do you realize that I actually demonstrated the two types of leadership, the leaders in this talk? The first is more inclusive, asking more questions and getting your feedback. And the second, while the words I asked you to type are to enforce your learning the concepts like people first, behavior, people skills, intentional. But I did that like what some leaders do, telling the people what to do. Well, how did that make you feel? This time, you can type in the chat and unmute yourself and let me know how you felt about that. So with that, let's start the Q&A time. Wow, both. Glad to see. All right.
Thank you, Moonway. Thank you so much for your talk. It was really interactive. Like I was kind of, I need to listen to what she said so I can answer her in the chat. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Now, people, we are open to questions. One way we'll take all the questions. Just raise your hand and I'll be like introducing you to ask your question. Thank you.
Any questions? No?
Seems like it was all clear.
Wow. Didn't realize I was that clear.
Yeah, there's a question. Actually, there's a hand. Justina ODG raised her hand. So Justina.
Hi, Justina.
Hi, good afternoon, ma'am.
Hello.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you so much for the wonderful section. I really enjoyed the section and every of your word you said. It's really, really inspiring too. I appreciate it so much. Sorry for now, I can't turn off my video for you to see me clearly. Yes. So my question is this. Well, because I'm new to this Agile, this whole thing, and my question is, for someone practicing an HR role, because I was once a teacher and I decided to go and go into the human resources, which I have passion for, and I've just into it, taking some courses there. Now, my question is, how is this of benefit to someone coming into human resources?
How is it a benefit? What do you mean? How is what a benefit?
Okay, how is it going to help one to grow as a human resources? You know, someone coming new into a human resources and coming into all this Agile program now that this talks are giving. How can I align as in work with it? How will it going to because as a human resources, I really want to move with it. I really want to go because I have passion with people. I've been a boss. I've worked with somewhere else. So how do I I don't know if you are getting me. How do I move on with it? How do I align it to move well? I just need a kind of guideline to carry on in my career path.
Very good question. Let me ask you one question first. So how seasoned are you in the HR as an HR professional?
Okay,
Are you
no, is it just 1 year? Let me just put it 1 year.
So from my experience, the traditional HR is actually very siloed. What they did is they work with executives and of the company and the senior management of the company. And then whatever senior management want, they will roll out programs. It's across the company. And then everybody else in the company will just have to, well, go with it because HR just rolled out a new program. Whether we like it or not, whether it's actually helpful or not, it doesn't matter. That is actually not the Agile ways of working. The leadership skills that I talk about, and hopefully you're not running an adult daycare center and you're a 21st century leader, is basically means you people first, which means you put the people first, not the senior management of the company. They're only part of the company. When you want to roll something out, you actually try to find out what the problems the employees are actually having, and also test out you think what the solution is that actually going to help? That's really the Agile ways of working. And then work with the people together and to find a solution that actually works. Let me give you actually an example. So I mentioned earlier about performance management, and I actually didn't like how it was actually done. So I decided that I'm going to change it. Now, I'm not an HR professional. I don't work in HR department at all. But then I do have the entire product development organization. So what I did is I actually have the teams incorporate feedback and into their, well, I don't know how familiar you are with the Agile ways of working, with Scrum specifically. So what I did is I actually have, as you know, in Scrum, there are iterations. And for that particular company, the iteration is every 2 weeks. And retrospective is a must basically at the end of every iteration. So what I did is I incorporate the retrospective into basically the feedback. And what I meant is the feedback usually is very good or very bad. Like, hey, you're really helpful to me, or, oh, your code sucks and now we have to do all A, B, and C. And there's nothing really ever in between. So I actually start noting those, and I start basically looking at the trends, and I trained the managers to look at the trends, and the team will figure it out and will actually help each other to actually get better. Now, when it doesn't, then I will escalate to the manager and let them actually help the team out. And within basically with every single month, the managers and I will actually look at the trends, and those will be noted in the performance review as a whole team, not individuals. And then, of course, in every quarter, we gather up all the data from every month and we have our quarterly reviews. And then basically with every year, well, we just gather them together every quarter and we have our annual performance review. Now, that's different from normally how HR does performance management. And interestingly, HR actually figured it out. I was actually helping the team to actually do something different under the hood. And so they were curious, like, hey, what do you do? Like the people seems to be more happy. They don't really dread the performance management, performance review as much as before. What did you do? So when I told them, they said, now interesting. Can we do that across the whole company? I said, of course you can. But of course, there will be changes when you deal with, for example, sales organization or marketing organization, because they are a little bit different from product development organizations. So guess what they did? They actually abolished the company corporate performance review process. And they actually got leaders from each of those groups and asked them, hey, we're trying these things. What do you think? Would that help? And then they wrote out a pilot. And when it is time for performance review time, they actually sent an email to the entire company and said, well, we're not going to do what we used to do. And we're trying something new. And here's what we're going to try. And please let us know if it actually works for you. That was actually the first time that I have ever seen HR admitting that they don't know anything. Because any traditional HR usually is perfectionist. They make sure the program is done everything and they think is perfect and then wrote it out without actually talking to people who are actually going to be using the program. So that's one example of what I would be expecting HR. And actually, in fact, there are more and more HR like that in the world that is changing to that type of model, meaning that they are actually working with the employees, understanding the problems, and also understanding the problems on the management side, every single level, and then actually work with the employees to actually help solve the problem. And HR really becomes the agile coach more than, hey, we are the enforcers of policies or we are the one who make policies. Does that answer your question? Does that give you an example? Justina?
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. No, I'm clear. Whatever I say is well understood now. I think I'm fine.
Good. I'm glad.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I think we have another hand up. Shidima, did I?
Excuse me, before we answer Shidima, Justina, yesterday there was a talk about Agile, how to align Agile and HR. So in the chat, I've just pasted you the link of the lady that did the talk. You can directly contact her if you need more information about how to be an Agile HR.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Chidinma is the last hand raised, so we'll take Chidinma and then stop, close the session. Chidinma.
Right.
Oh,
all right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Chidinma.
Okay, thank you so much for this wonderful explanation. For me, this is the first time I'm hearing about agile leadership, and it sounds so interesting. So I must commend you guys for that and for giving us such opportunity to get to learn new things every day. So my question is, how do you apply this agile leadership if you find yourself in a public establishment like government establishment, say in the civil service, without making people to feel too relaxed about their duties. Okay, I volunteer for Commission for Persons with Disability, and I do know there were times we do work from home, but you find out that it's just few of us that are dedicated to our work, while others are either too relaxed or unconcerned of what they're expected to do. So how do you inculcate that in public service? Thank you.
Good question. So public service is actually no different than for-profit companies or non-profit companies for that matters. It really have no difference. As you heard in my story, my first few years of my work experience is actually from a government. So not quite public service, but not a commercial sector. It doesn't matter. How you actually start also doesn't matter what level you are in that organization. Of course, the higher level you are, the more influence you will have with the people below you. But it really doesn't matter. What I mentioned earlier is you start with the people around you, the people whom you work with every day, the people who, if you are going back to the office, whom you see every day. If you're not back in the office, as you mentioned that you work remote as well, it doesn't matter, people in your team. Because when you display these characteristics, people realize that you care for them, that you actually empathize with them, that they feel safe with you, that you don't judge them, and they start opening up. And the interesting thing is, human beings is an interesting thing. When they receive something like this, they want to replicate and they want to treat you the same way. Well, most of them anyways. And then they were wondering, now, can I also do the same with the people around me? Or how can I do the same? And that's when you can actually have the ripple effect of influence. And that's what it meant by leadership from all levels. Now, you will encounter, unfortunately, some people who don't like that, especially when you're getting higher up. People care about only themselves, their own agenda. They think that they have climbed the ladder to a certain level, that they have a certain rights or certain entitlement, that they're entitled to certain privileges. They care about their power, they want to build their empire. You will always find people like that. And that's okay. Then you don't force them. You don't reprimand them and say, hey, you should be more caring. You don't. You just, you deal with them as they know, how what they understand. But for most people that I deal with, they're not like that. And they just need someone to start showing, and they just need someone to actually show them how it can be done, and that it actually can be done. Let me actually give you an example. I was actually with a team. Our team has basically a daily meeting for 15 minutes. It's called a daily stand-up. And the team is comprised of people from different nationalities, Russians, Singaporean, Indians, Chinese, Ukrainians. So one time, one of the teammates, is actually a birthday of one of the teammates. And so the rest of the team says, hey, let's sing happy birthday when he came into the room. And that was before the pandemic. And when he came into the room and we sing happy birthday and wish him a happy birthday. And then we can have cake and drinks afterwards. It's like, okay, it sounds good. So he walked in the room and everybody sings happy birthday. His response? He was absolutely livid. He was upset. He was pissed off. I was thinking, why would anybody be upset when you sing happy birthday? I mean, even if it's not your birthday, you won't be livid. And he was so upset, he literally just walked out of the room. he stormed out, and I was thinking, that is strange. So I chased after him and I said, hey, what's going on? Why are you seem really upset. Why are you so upset? It is your birthday, isn't it? I mean, we sing happy birthday, and in the US, I mean, this is our tradition. We sing happy birthday and wish people happy birthday. That's when he started and said, hey, sorry, it's in my culture, we don't actually celebrate birthday this way. And at home, in my home specifically, we actually don't do anything like that. So, and I think that this is a daily stand-up, has only 15 minutes, and you're basically wasting precious time to sing happy birthday when we have actually business at hand. And I said, well, sorry, I didn't realize that that's how you think. And so, all right. And so I just walked back to the room. And so I told the others, well, that's not his grew up and his background and his culture. Now, the next day, before he walked in, everybody was basically very nervous and on eggshell and not really sure how to deal with him. And he walked in and he said, I'm sorry, I just want to apologize for how I reacted yesterday. Mun-wei chased after me and explained to me that this is, is your well wishes and this is your tradition. And he explained why he reacted the way he did. And then he said, now I understood. I understand that that's not the right thing to do. I want to apologize. And that one of the other person in the team, he happened to be American. He said, well, it's actually me who think of something like that. And I am so sorry. I'm stupid Americans who thinks that everybody must act the same way as we do. I apologize. And next time when I want to do something like this, I will ask you first. And I ask any of you just to make sure. And guess what? The team actually got closer together. So that's an example of what one person can do, and to make sure then it will actually influence the rest of the team. Because guess what? That team has actually visitors from around the world, other offices to come in from time to time for projects. And when those people who came in didn't actually display the same behavior, they actually said, no, this team doesn't act this way. And then they changed those people as well. So that's one example, and hopefully that will give you hopefully create some spark in your brain to say, hey, what I can do in my situation. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. I appreciate.
Sure, absolutely. Oh, by the way, for Justina, I know that you also asked about Agile HR. I just remember that there is a community called Agile HR Community. You can actually Google it, and it's actually headed up by Rena Hellstrom. You would be able to actually learn a lot more. She has a lot of meetups to actually share what Agile HR actually does. And another one is actually a book called Agile HR Book by Rena Hellstrom and Natal Denk. And that will be a really good resource, especially your HR professionals. They are HR professionals, and they can tell you how to be an HR professional, an Agile HR professional. So I'm going to put that.
Thank you so much. I would like to connect. Sorry. All right. Sorry, please. Sorry.
Yeah.
I said I really appreciate so much, and I would love to get that and get connected so I can learn more and become an HR professional too. I wouldn't mind if the link is also sent to me and how I can really get connected to them, because I need a mentor, because it's a new role, it's a new career path.
You are at the right place. Just get in touch with Mun-wei and the link will be set, and you are at the right place for that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mun-wei, for the time that you've taken to speak to us. Thank you for all the attendees. We are now going to start the next session with Marlene Jacobsen. Thank you, people. Thank you so much. Mun-wei, happy to have you to this conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye.
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 So, hello, Marlene. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. And you?
I'm fine. Thanks. Let's just start. So Marlene's talk will be about how to make the C-suite being agile without agile. This is a big question. How to make the C-suite being agile, like how to make it looks agile without he being agile, really agile. So who is agile? Agile,